going to show you my setup. So this is with the 2020 Africa Twin standard transmission. I have the SW Motech Trax partial Trax setup, and the Trax is the type of case. There's Trax Ion and Trax Adventure, something like that. The Ions are older. They have plastic hinges. They have slab sides. You can get some parts for them, but they're not nearly as stiff. They're a little bit lighter because they're less strong. So if they're still available anywhere, they're usually less expensive, and it's for a reason. If you're already going to spend the money, you should probably just get the Trax Adventure. As you can see, mine are beat up. I've had them since mid-2020, so 2 years and many thousands of travel miles. Some people are weirded out by having metal cases, and they claim something like that they could get their leg broken if they fall over. I don't get it. I do like soft cases. I like lightweight. You'll see that here in a second. But there is no way to replace, for long distance touring, a lockable, waterproof case that locks to the bike and that locks its lid. There's nothing like it. Just nothing like it. So, on this machine, if you went to the SW Motech website and it outfitted the Africa Twin, it would show a 45-liter side case on this side and a 37 on that side because of the exhaust. My setup currently, I have the 45-liter bag, but I'm not using it. I'm using my right-hand side bag on my left-hand side because you can, and because that's how I wanted to get it set up for light duty. So still need all my stuff for camping and adventuring, but I'm not going for 5 days in a row. I'm only going for a couple days. I want a locking box so that I don't have to either take it off somewhere, and I want it to be waterproof. I don't even want to have to think about it. This is the way to go. I have obviously fallen over and or crashed with this multiple times, and I've done no damage to my leg, foot, or ankle in any of those circumstances, nor do I think that's reasonable. If anything, it has helped me. This isn't a BMW GS where you have a couple of cylinders hanging out that cause the bike to barely fall over at 45 degrees. This bike, when it goes over and goes flat. So this actually helps keep it up a little bit if you happen to get into some spicy stuff and tip over, which happens. So the normal setup is that the lock mechanism and latch mechanism is at the back. That is how they are shipped, but you can swap them. I'm showing you that's how mine is set up. There is a mechanism at the back where you click down a plastic contraption, and that allows you to remove the lid. And you undo these two limiting straps to keep the lid from going too far, and then you have the lid. Not all the time would you need to use that, but it is nice to have, especially in a camping scenario, even if it's just having a little thing to hold your stuff to keep it out of the dirt. So just showing you that, and it's a metal rod as opposed to a piece of plastic or a plastic hinge. And you put that back on there like that, and you press a button, and it clicks into place, and then it's locked. Move it. These are not symmetric, so if you are changing one bag side for another, you have to adjust these spools for it to be left or right, and that's with these holes here. These holes are also these carriers in SW Motech world. A lot of people call them rear racks. They can be configured to fit other bags and other systems depending on what you want to use. These latches I have on both sides because I'm swapping back and forth. This particular spool has a locking feature on it, And that is so that I can fit a Sysbag 30. So let me show you that from the other side. So the Sysbag 30 has a lock mechanism that needs a small little feature in addition to the spool that rides on the inside of here. So the trick, the cheat, is to order up the set of spools for your Pro side carrier for an Aero ABS side case. That Aero ABS side case has the same spools go into a similar setup, but then it also comes with that locking feature. The spool size fits within the same diameter as the Trax Adventure and Trax Iron cases. And as long as there hasn't been any damage, that protrusion that gets locked into this spot does not interfere with the case. While we have this off, I want to comment on toolboxes. Here's an SW Motech, the newest waterproof locking toolbox. So it is what replaced this. This was a thing that was sold on the website for about 50 bucks. I do not know if they still sell it. It's essentially something that you could buy from any farm implement store or tractor supply to work as a tool roll or for manuals. The thing is, when you buy those, they're just a piece of plastic with these plastic mounts. What you get if you bought the SW Motech version was these brackets, which allowed to fit to Evo and Pro carriers. So not waterproof, has a hole for drainage, not lockable. This is what replaced that other tool, called toolbox, but it's tough to call the toolbox. This is a lockable case that has a really nice, beautiful setup. The bowl is upside down because I have to have it here with an Africa Twin. The way I have it set up, it would be not as easy to get to the key, so I just kind of leave it. It can go either way, right? In order to get this to fit on an Africa Twin, I had to go through some changes. The main thing I had to do was modify a little bit of one of the mounts. I forget which one. The key was that I have the SW Motech rear rack. So that's this tube here. That's what caused a lot of issues with trying to get it to fit up within the space that I have here so that you could actually access the back. So I had to hog out one of these plates that attaches to the smaller brackets, and then I had to do something with, like, I think the nut that is inside here is super thin. So if you have SW Motech Pro carrier and you want to fit that and you have it on an Africa Twin, it just gives you an idea of this, you know, what type of stuff you're up against. I mean, you can see where this has been rubbing against this. It's not optimal, but to have a locking toolbox has been kind of nice. Is it critical? No. Another thing I like about the Pro carriers, though, even if they are quick release, they're lockable. So right there's the lock mechanism, and you can buy a kit that has a key, this key here, for 6 of these locks. So 2 locks for this, 2 locks for left, and 2 locks for right case, locks for this, and a lock for this. It's like 90 bucks, but it's awesome to have one key to rule them all. Anyway, these things still look badass even when they're on. That it can't be said for most of the other manufacturers' stuff that looks like somebody's about to hang drywall on your bike with scaffolding. So it disappears onto the bike regardless of the bike, and that kind of formed plate is really bitchin'. So something to consider with the very lightweight, about 12 pounds per side, no, 5 pounds per side, carriers. All right, some comments on the modularity of some of the SW Motech stuff. So is the Trax Adventure that is on here now, and the Sysbag 30s. So those things with a little bit of fiddliness, you can put either on a pro side carrier. Right. So if you take off the Trax Adventure, which I have these handles that come from a company called Green Chili. I can't remember if their name is anywhere on these, but so Green Chili Adventure. Another thing you could do is you leave the spools down here, and then you would have a spool very similar to this at the top. And you can put on the Sysbag 15, which I think a lot of people would like and have liked in the past. That those would fit down there, and again you'd have the latch here, click, then smaller bag, not as useful in most cases, but if you're just doing small stuff and you can pack light, holy crap, that's a light bag, right? So that goes there. Also, I can get this off one-handed, which I can. You can reconfigure this. The spools that have this for the top case to lay on, this is a black plastic. What you would get is a Sysbag 15 adapter set, which would have the spools that are made for this, similar to this, but maybe a little different. They would bolt to here and here, and then you would remove this clasp, and you'd have one of these spool boops here. And that would allow you to put the Sysbag 15 on the back on your adventure rack. So I feel that's something that everybody should know if they have different bikes and they're looking for different modularities to be able to fit them. Now again, not again, but in the first place, you cannot lock these. There's no locking mechanism made by SW Motech. Doesn't mean you couldn't rig something up, but nothing that they have that locks this latch so that somebody couldn't just use their thumb and take it off. So be aware of that. That's definitely something with the Sysbag system that is not as nice as the Trax Adventure. So from a configuration standpoint, my last adventure ride was very similar to this, except for I didn't use my top case. I had some other stuff like used rock straps, just used the adventure rack, because while this is very functional, it's not necessary all the time, and putting weight high in the back is the worst thing you can do. So I try and bring as much stuff to the front. Normally I have I normally have Drybag 80s on either side. You can see where they rub into the powder coat on the SW Motech crash bars if they're on for long enough. This powder coat isn't the strongest in the world, but it's working fairly well for me. So have one side with the 37-liter bag that's been swapped, and then one side with the Sysbag 30, and then this mainly, I did not think I would utilize it for this, but it ended up being very handy just because it's like going to say a hotel room or wanting to get it off to put next to your campfire or whatever. It's easy, right? So I like that. It's contained. It's not waterproof, but I have a rain cover in here, so yeah, it's awesome. It's a good setup, and so I think that's a good general duty camper racer off-roady setup.